There's a photograph on Wikipedia of Joe Foster, founder of Reebok. No idea who he is. But you see, it wasn't about Joe Foster. You know, I never thought that this was the Joe Foster story. It was Reebok.
Reebok.
You know, I have to sell Joe Foster now. I need to sell him now because we need to tell the story.
So
But
Joe just came out with a new book. It's called The Shoemaker. So here's the book right here. See, the founder of Reebok, untold story of the British family firm that became a global brand. And definitely get that book, folks. Here's the back cover. Joe, so you want to tell us a little bit about this book? Why did you decide? This is what I want to know. Why did you decide to write this? You just said 86 years old. I mean, you could have wrote this 50 years ago. Like, why now? Why are you coming out with this now?
I did start about 7 years ago. And the reason I'm doing this is that we've got computers now. Everybody, you know, you don't look at Encyclopedia Britannica or any encyclopedia. You just Google it. You just Google it or you Wikipedia it, whatever. And they were telling me how Reebok started. They were saying, this is how Reebok started. And this was, Reebok, it was Foster's, just change the name. And I'm saying, no, just a minute, you know. And there was a photograph on Wikipedia of Joe Foster, founder of Reebok. No idea who he is. Not a clue. Never even found out. Don't know. So I thought, let's get this right. Let's tell the story and let's get it right. What happened? You know, it took a lot of anger, a lot of suffering, and you know, in a family to do that split. It wasn't just a matter of changing the name. Yeah, it needed, story was there because the story was something rather more important than just the change of the name. So that's why I sat down and started writing the book.
No, Joe, that's a valid point. So I'm sorry. You said you went to Wikipedia and you saw a picture of Joe Foster, who is another Joe Foster of your story.
Yes.
That would have like been a low blow for anybody, I think, to see something like that after many years of building that.
Well, you know, whether I'm right or wrong, as far as I was concerned, there was a story there, a good story.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't just be sort of passed over and then the wrong people. No, and the story does start with my grandfather and just how did Foster's start? And then why did we leave Foster's? You know, I think a lot of people know the story of Adidas. How, you know, Adolf Dassler, who was Adi Dassler, and his brother Rudy Dassler, they, just like my father and my uncle, they didn't get on, they fought. And you know, so Rudy left and set up a different company. That is a story I think a lot of people know. Whether they know the whole story, they'd have to buy, I think it's a book called Pitch Invasion, which tells the story, the early story of the Dasslers. It wasn't written by any of the Dasslers, so I don't think they like to acknowledge it themselves, but it tells the story. And I think it's good to get those stories, like Shoe Dog by, not for Nike. You know, you get the story and it tells you, you know, what Phil Knight had to do and what he went through from his garage. You know, he started and things like that, and it tells that story. And my story, there's a lot of things we did almost the same at the same time. He was in America though, which was a bit of an advantage because he was on the market that I wanted. I knew that was the market to be in, and he was there. But we did travel along some way, even though we've never met. I've never met Phil Knight. One of these days, maybe when we're over doing the trip with the book, maybe I'll see if we can, you know, knock on somebody's door and find out where Phil Knight is. But that's why I started writing the book. Needed to put things right.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And actually, well, I have a question for you. Can you confirm, does Adidas own Reebok right now? I don't really know the whole. We're going to get into that a little bit. Who owns Reebok right now?
Adidas bought Reebok in 2005.
Okay.
And they're right in the middle of the sale now. They've just sold it to ABG. I don't know if you're Authentic Brands Group. Authentic Brands, the main character is Jamie Slater, and his main man is Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh,
Shaq.
okay.
So Shaq loves Reebok. Shaq started with Reebok and his basketball career.
And the
Then
reason I was asking you, Joe, sorry to interrupt you. The reason I was asking you, because to go back to your point, was that I was searching Reebok's website and I couldn't find the Joe Foster story. I couldn't even find your name. So, you know, that's more reason for what you're doing. I think it's very important.
But you see, it wasn't about Joe Foster. You know, I never thought that this was the Joe Foster story. It was Reebok.
Reebok
You know,
story, yeah, exactly.
Reebok. We didn't. I didn't want anybody to confuse one thing from the other. The Fosters with anything. This was about Reebok. So it's always been about Reebok for me. It's only when we're at this point now where, yeah, well, let's tell the story properly. If you think of J.W. Fosters, they were really famous. You know, what my grandfather did was absolutely incredible. And had we not started Reebok and Reebok become successful, his story would have been forgotten.
Yeah.
Just totally forgotten. So it's as much of the Foster family for me and the success and the time that's gone through as anything. So it was not about Joe Foster. Now I have to sell Joe Foster now. I need to sell him now because we need to tell the story. But ABG, they've just bought the company. It actually completes. They started off sometime in October, and then actually completes at the end of February. So we're probably another 6-7 weeks, and then it will be at the end. But they have now repositioned. They're doing a lot of things. In fact, I have another podcast with a guy who is part of the ABG group tomorrow. So
oh wow,
that should be interesting. Yeah, maybe we should have had this after, because but at that time we'll know an awful lot more. So that's interesting, and they seem to be a happy company. You know,
well, no worries. Let's take a note of that, because you're going to be on Clubhouse next week or 2 weeks from now. So we can just bring the follow up to that story, folks. Come to Clubhouse and get the follow up to that story.
It'll be very interesting. Yes, indeed. So when you say now, yes, ABG. So now the ABG, I think they're a $10 billion company now. They own a few brands. Juicy, they own Barney's, and they own 1 or 2 brands now in America. I think maybe 5 or 6 brands, but now Reebok is the biggest buy for them. This is a big buy. And Shaq, I know we used to read about Shaq. Shaq used to go into Jamie's office, and Jamie used to say, you know, you get these messages. When Shaq comes in, the first thing he talks about is Reebok. And the last thing he talks about is Reebok. And that's before. And he said, yeah, buy me that company. Because Adidas, of course, you know, Adidas paid a lot of money for the company. They paid nearly $4 billion. And when you pay that sort of money, you own it. And when you own it, you know, you make it work for yourself, which they did. You know, the idea was that Reebok and Adidas together would be competition for Nike. You know, they'd be really as big as Nike. It never worked that way. Adidas grew quite a bit. Reebok shrunk quite a bit. Adidas wanted Reebok as a fitness company, and Adidas wanted to stay as a sports performance company. And of course, that meant that Reebok were not playing in the same fields that they'd been playing in. So if you're not playing in those fields, your business goes down. But ABG now are forecasting the growth of the company to be 5 billion this year. And, you know, they're less than 2 billion at the moment. So to get to 5 billion, but I think that's a lot to do with the fact that they have a lot of distribution that exists. So, you know, the setting about that distribution, it's going to be an exciting time. It really is. Reebok really is. And I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. Superb.